Liz.
I'm Robby. Welcome back to our channel, Bookworm Couple. Today we are going to be talking about the, I think, 7th. Is it the 7th?
Great
Sixth.
question.
6th. I think it's the 6th book in the Throne of Glass series, Tower of Dawn.
This one always confuses me because it's like a side quest, you know? So I'm just like, it obviously is a part of it, but it's like different.
I just full on forgot how many books
I'm
there
also
are
terrible
in the series.
at numbers. You know that.
I do know
about
that.
me.
I do know that
Mm-hmm.
about you. But yeah, so this is the penultimate book, though it does take place at the same time as the previous book, Empire of Storms, so it is in a bit of a strange situation.
Yeah, side quest.
I had a mixed time with this book, which I think is probably the general consensus.
I think so, yeah. I also had a mixed time with this book.
I didn't have a problem with anything that happened in the book other than the fact that I don't know that I believe it really justified the fact that it needed to be its own novel.
Fair.
I think it could have been a novella. I think, based on my experience with the last book and this one, they could have been one book.
Sure.
You know, I liked the last book. It was probably, I think it's my favorite of the series so far. But there's a lot of side quests in the book, and I feel like there's stuff that could have been cut from the last book, and I feel like a lot of this book is kind of filler.
I don't feel like this one stuck with me as much as the rest of them did. Pieces of it, I think that might be a lie, because pieces of it really did.
There are some really...
I don't know, it's a very, I feel very medium about it.
There are some very, very big reveals that happen in this book.
Yeah, which I totally forgot.
But I don't think
that they happen in this book.
they happen too late. I think it's a little too late. It's past the 80% mark of the book, which
For a
is...
reveal? Don't you feel like a reveal is at the end?
I think the book hadn't... I think that until that moment, the book didn't have a reason to exist. I think that the book hadn't justified its existence until then. I think that everything that happened, there are certain people and characters and interactions and things that happened that I enjoy, but I don't think any of them was vital until something that happened over 80% of the way through the book, and that is really the only thing that happened in the whole book that I think was entirely vital. And so I just think that's a little bit too little too late.
Okay.
I mean, it's a huge reveal and it's great, but it's just, if that's all you were going for, it could have been included in the last book, or you could have written a, decently sized novella, a few hundred-page novella, as opposed to an entire novel. But anyway, okay, that's...
I have something to say on it, but I think it has spoilers. So
okay, fine.
Continue.
Well, so that all being said, let's just dive into the spoiler section.
Go,
so if you haven't read this book yet, spoilers going forward, check out the rest of our talks on the Throne of Glass books up here or in the description down below. But anyway, spoilers going forward. So, I mean, I guess we can just start with that big reveal. I mean, that Maeve is a Wild Queen, and actually everything is her fault.
Yeah.
It is all her fault, which I thought was kind of a funny touch.
Yeah.
But
I think she's such an intriguing character. I would take a novella of her, POVs. Just from... Because I just find her so curious, and I think this book, you obviously get more... You're going to get a little bit more next book, but not just her being around. I think we don't get a lot. We get it in, the books when... Aelin goes to the other continent and whatnot, and I just find her character so intriguing. It's so intriguing, and especially finding out more about her, I'm like, this woman.
I mean, I thought that was really interesting, and I just...
Or this godlike woman, whatever we want to call her.
That's my other thing, is, so I know that in the last video, specifically, I was like, all this stuff is happening, I'm really pissed that Maeve gets a full villain monologue, but we still don't know why she's doing any of this. And we get that reason in this book. So credit to Sarah J. Maas for giving us a reason.
Yeah.
I was afraid I was afraid it wouldn't happen, so I'm glad that that's there. But based on the description of what she has done to integrate herself into this society as essentially just an alien being, she is like a god. Why has she not... I guess I don't understand why she doesn't just do that to Aelin. And literally everyone in the world, because she managed to do it to her sisters, the most powerful beings in existence, to literally rip their minds out.
Oh, okay.
And implant herself... implant herself in them.
I don't know that she spent enough time with Aelin, though.
I don't think she... Based on what I said... based on what I read, she didn't need to. Literally in the beginning, they were it was literally she did it to everyone. Anyone who visited the kingdom, anyone who did anything, she either did that or she killed them.
Sure.
And she must have had to do that for a while for it to now just be common knowledge that she is actually Fae. So, anyway, there were a few things at the end that I was like, you're stretching logic a little bit. Like, there are loopholes that I can pretty easily find without even having to think about it too much. Like, to make this plot work. This is one of them. And maybe this will be kind of solved, but like, you know, stuff at the end where like the way that the ring with the Valg princess got put on Duva was like, it just happened to be in like the large gifts from other kingdoms that like they sent for her upcoming nuptials, and the other princess was going to take it, whose name is escaping me right now, but Duva saw her taking it and said, no, I want it, and snatched it, and then also decided it was going to be her wedding band. And so, like, her husband, because they mentioned that her husband put the ring on her finger in front of everyone. So I was like, so she decided a random gift from someone in another kingdom that she had never met gave her her wedding band? I don't... Well, if it did, they didn't explain that. No. I'm not in character.
That's a detail I didn't really think
so
about.
I was just like, this is weird. And also, and this is actually my biggest one, when they go running down at the very end, they're like, they figured out that they're underneath the library.
Yeah.
And they're like, where are the tunnels? The librarian's like, I know exactly where they are. And I was like, did you not think maybe when someone got murdered in the library just weeks or months ago, that when you were having all of the people search it, maybe they should go into those tunnels, the only exit? They've said so many times there's no other exit, but the librarian knows that there's a bunch of tunnels underneath the library.
Maybe they didn't ask the librarian.
And I was just like, I cannot believe that that's true. Anyway, those were some... I thought there were just some pretty glaring logical fallacies in this. In the, you know, climax of what is happening in the book, that I was just like, wait, so if we knew exactly where the tunnels were the whole time, like, why didn't we go there before? And wait, she got the ring put on her finger by her... She didn't have a wedding band picked out? Like, I just... It took me out of the moment because it was so it was so simple to me that I was just like, oh. Usually it's not really a problem for me because I don't really care and I'm just there for the ride and I enjoy it. It has to be like pretty glaring, in my opinion, for it to like take me out of it, and it was in this case. I like kind of got bumped out of it by being like, wait, what? Like, if you knew it was there the whole time, you could have just found her at any moment. But, because they also spent a decent... Whatever.
Obviously, it didn't occur to me, so...
Anyway, we should go back to the beginning of the book. Irene! And I was really, really happy to see her.
And she's just as awesome as we all expected. She's just as
awesome. And don't worry, I know some of you were afraid. She is hot. She's super hot. She's so hot. If you could say anything about Irene, she's got great hair, a tiny waist, and big old titties. Yep. And they really wanted to make sure that you knew that in like the first few chapters in which she returned, because they mentioned it repeatedly.
We're setting up a sexy book, so you have to have a visual. So she has to be
conventionally sexy.
No, I
know you were afraid.
I get you. I get what you're saying. But also, I think part of the like having so much descriptions about physicality. Yes, they are all the same, and that's obnoxious. You know how I feel about plain, which we've kind of, at least we've moved beyond plain. We're like, she is so hot. But anyways, I think it's there because like these books are sexy. Like you're supposed to get a sexy feeling out of them. So part of that is like, hey, these are the things that turn you on. Let me talk to you about it in these characters so that you're turned on, so that you're ready for the sexiness.
Yeah, it's not something I have a problem with. It's just something I've had to adjust to because I think it's really funny because every single character is hot. Yeah. It's like watching an animated show where you suddenly know, like, if someone shows up that looks really good, you're like, this is going to be a main character because they're going to use all the extra lines. It takes them a lot of time to draw them as opposed to all the other kind of easier to draw characters.
At the end of the day.
I mean, I think beauty's in the eye of the beholder, but
Thank you. Yeah, so.
Yes. Anyway, it's not a bad thing. I just think it's funny. It's just
these are sexy books. Everyone's gonna be hot.
Even if a character has been, the thing that really makes me laugh is that even if a character has been in a book before where they didn't have a romance interest, and it's just like they're just kind of there, you can tell they're about to be romanced because suddenly they gotta glow up.
Because you're supposed to like be attracted to this character so that you get the full sexual experience of this smutty book.
Okay, great, fine. I
I
don't care. Though. It says, no, not really. They have sex.
Yeah, but it's not. I mean, anyways, that's how I feel about it.
Okay, great. Yeah, Irene's great. I really liked her character. I really liked everything about her in this book. I thought she was wonderful. I think she was probably my favorite character.
Yeah,
in the book.
she's dope. She's phenomenal.
She's really great. I've missed her since Assassin's Blade. She was my favorite new character that was introduced in that. So I'm really glad she's back. I did think it was like
and powerful as heck.
Well, that was actually what I was literally just about to say. I did think it was kind of funny. Like, as soon as we got introduced to her, it's like, one, first off, don't worry, she's hot. Two, she's like she's the new heir apparent to the tower, and the Tor, or however you say it, and to be the high healer, and she learned everything in like 2 years and stuff, and I was like, that seems short.
I will say, though, Irene has had to work really hard, and so she gets to this place and is like, of course, is going to go all in because she had this opportunity.
Oh, absolutely, for sure. And
so that fast growth doesn't seem too...
No, it didn't bother me. And also, she's clearly the chosen of Silba, the god of healing.
Definitely.
Which I was just like, everyone Aelin happens to have ever run into is somehow the chosen of some god. Got it. Which, fair.
Which, why would you write about anyone that wasn't? You know what I mean?
That's a fair point. In a fantasy book, why would you? What a boring normal person when you could have a hot chosen of a god.
Yeah. My dream, honestly.
Fair enough. I will say the one thing that's kind of just related to her and her entire storyline was that, like, you know, her power is literally light. That was the way it's kind of described in the book, which is really cool. And, you know, all the many scenes where she is, you know, fighting the darkness within Chaol and stuff. I immediately from the beginning was like, okay, so the description was something along the lines of like her power recoiled from the darkness, but it also recoiled from her. And I was like, cool, great. So the healers are going to be the ones who can push back the darkness of the Vogue. I thought that was the reveal, but then it played like 2/3 of the book later as if them discovering that was a reveal, which I was kind of confused by. I thought it had already just been like told to us in like the second chapter. And then they played it as this like huge moment.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay.
We've
cool.
already figured that out,
like,
but we were in there.
I thought that you told me.
I thought that we were, I thought we were talking about.
I thought, but whatever.
I thought the descriptions of the way that she uses her healing magic were just so cool.
Yeah.
Like in her head, the like fight, the like metaphorical kind of like good and evil, light and dark descriptions of her like delving into that darkness to heal. I thought those were the big points that stuck with me from the book were
also
those like healing sessions were just
the healing
so
sessions
cool.
I thought were very interesting and
the visuals
I liked that they were. I thought that they were pretty well done. I mean it's, you know, part of it was clearly also like not just, you know, physically healing him, but the mental health.
Yeah, exactly, and that's what we needed
which was really
for Chaol.
Interesting. Yeah.
Well,
like, Chaol. I mean, gosh, Chaol is like one of the biggest. Him and Aelin in some ways are the same, and just like if someone else, if you are feeling bad about something you have done, you're gonna lash out really hard. Him and Aelin share that in common.
They do.
Like when he's like, oh no, I'm treating Nesrin like crap after Nesrin broke up with him via text, essentially, which I thought was really funny.
She's like, post-it
like,
note.
I'm leaving, bye. I'm not going to hold you to any promises, and I'm not going to keep any for myself. And I was like, but, and he's like, he reads the note, and then after like him and Irene really wanting to, I was going to say the F word, and I can't say that.
Slam down big style.
Yeah, so slam down big style. Shout out to Mention 20. They slammed down big style.
After they really want to say
and then he suddenly like lashes out at Irene, and I was like, oh god,
classic.
This.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing Aelin does, and it really bothers me. So hopefully he stops doing it. But I don't know. You know what another toxic trait of Chaol is immediately marrying. So like getting him like long distance. When they got, I just laughed at the end. I felt kind of bad. It was supposed to be like I think a sweet reveal, but I was like, why did you get married? Like it's been 5 seconds.
Because it then means you've made this big commitment.
Well, but they don't need to make that big commitment because they have now been magically linked, which I guess we can get into this now. Sarah J. Maas cannot help herself. She needs to take away the agency of characters who are in love with each other and put them in a situation in which they don't actually have a choice, which in my mind is like the antithesis of love. Again, I have spoken of this before, but it's just like, and also it coming after the fact that we spent an entire book watching Kale's spine be repaired and then having it broken again. I gotta know, how do people feel about that? Like, in the wider world, internet, let me know in the comments. How did you feel about the fact that we spent a whole book watching Kale be healed and then have his spine broken again? Because it didn't bother me that much, but I think it's funny.
I thought it was devastating.
Oh,
and
really?
I think that's the effect it was supposed to have.
It didn't have that
we've, like, been through this and seen his physical and mental growth, and then also this growth with this relationship with this person, and you're like, oh my god, yes, love it, and then it gets broken again. Like, literally the worst thing that could happen in that moment was that. And yes, I think there was a part of me that was like a little bit frustrated, but also I think overwhelmingly I was devastated for it.
You're right. I think it makes sense. I guess that you're right. The arc does make sense, and I understand why it was done. But also, then she like wrote a loophole for herself to have it like not actually have kind of happened, and have an extra thing of like, oh, it means that they're destined to be together. And it kind of made me roll my eyes. But again, yeah, the fact that her magic power is linked to him and will be what allows him to walk and stuff. Like, obviously. I
will say of anything like a fated mate trope, that's probably one of the actual strongest though, because it's like because at that point it's
you still have a choice.
And then the fact is like that's kind of like the work of a partnership of like, can you give and take perfectly enough to continue this partnership when you know this is like rotative around this relationship. Yeah, no, it's definitely better. And where do you choose yourself and then choose this other person / both of each other? Yeah. It's kind of like I see it as kind of like a metaphor in that way of like the strength of a relationship. Sure, yeah. I mean, it's definitely better than, at least it bothers me less than like the Fae mate thing. But I did just be like, do you have to? It's so funny because like reading it on my own was something that I was like loving, but I do think, and this is something that I've talked about in our videos, there's so much I'm breaking down from what I was like taught by society as a young woman as to what a good relationship is and what to desire in a relationship. And there's so much in the back of my head of that, like, there's one person for you, there's a soulmate. And I think I spent so many years like desiring that this feels like the adult version of it, of being like, we know you all wanted this. We know that this is kind of what you thought it had to be or what it should be. And so here's like these people that are in love, but also they're fated. Yeah, sure. And it's so interesting you bring it up because like reading it, I loved it. But I'm sure there's so many points that you make about it that I totally get. I mean, if I read this in 10 years, I may feel differently about it. No, but that's why I like having these conversations, is because felt differently. Right, me in my head, my little like romantic head, it's so interesting, like you bringing up points about it of like taking away that choice and other things. I'm like, oh wow, interesting. I wouldn't have. Well, because I think about it, but I also am so blindly obsessed with Sarah J. Maas that it's really hard for me to like say anything. Look, negative. It's not actually a bad thing. I know, this is a personal preference for me. I know, but I'm saying that's so interesting. Like I'm grateful for that because it actually takes me out of that of like, oh, why do I like that? Like, why is that? I think that's why we made this channel. No, I know, and that's what I'm saying. That's great. I love you. I love you too. I'm sure, when I was younger, if I had read stuff like that, I wouldn't have blinked at it, or maybe because I mean, it does, multiply the passion of it, and at least I think, and so that's clearly what these books are about and stuff. But I'm, in my mid-30s now, and maybe that's not exactly everything that I think of all the time. You choose me every day. I choose you every single day. Anyway, so now that my little rant is out of the way. Now, spiders. We're jumping ahead. I don't know. Talk about like Kale or Nestor in the first half of the book. I just like the spiders. I was actually surprised that they came back, but we can talk about that a little bit more in the future. Anyway, Irene. I really liked her storyline. She was my favorite character in this book, I think. Oh, yeah. Kale. Easily. Look, I'm a Kale fan. I enjoyed, but I will say, even when jumping into this book and starting it, was like, where's I'm ready to continue the rest of the plot. I know what's going on right now. Yes. Why are we hanging out? Yeah, and it's so hard because I'm sure everyone else went into this book the same way, being like, wait, the next book after Empire of Storms is going to be something
on a different continent that takes place at the same time and it's not going to continue the story? Like, what?
Yeah. Well, I think that's also a reason why people do the tandem read. Beyond,
sure.
From what I've heard, and that's after I would say I was probably a quarter of the way into this book, and I was like, should have done the tandem read. Because it was hard to motivate, because, like, I agree with you, whereas, like, I was in this other land, this other book with other people.
I actually read this book really fast, and partially because I really enjoyed Irene, I really enjoyed Kale, and I really enjoyed their storyline, and I very specifically enjoyed the slow burn romance between them and, I guess, Nesrin and Sartak, or however you say the prince's name, mostly because, less because of, like, I was really invested in the romance, which I was, I did enjoy it, at least between Irene and Kale. The Nesrin and the prince, I kind of was like, meh. I really enjoyed the fact that, like, Kale and Nesrin, who had come together, weren't gonna end up together, and like, what? I wanted to see what was going to happen. I was disappointed in the end, for reasons I will talk about later. But I enjoyed the book, and I also read it really fast because I was just like, I need to know how this book, like, justifies itself. I feel like I've said justifies it. The book didn't justify itself too many times already in this video, but I just think it never really did, because I kept reading it being like, why does this exist? Why was this not part of Empire of Storms? Like, and I don't think, like, the first half of the book, like, nothing happens. And the beginning part of the second half, even less happens. We're following Nesrin just, like, flying around for a very long time, and I feel so terrible for poor Nesrin, because, you know, I liked the character in the last book, and I feel like she just kind of got, like, her legs chopped out from underneath her in this. She got sidelined really hard, and her storyline was my least favorite. And, like, her going off with the Rux, essentially the Griffin Riders, I can't pronounce what they call them in this book, but they are Griffins. And the prince, and, like, you know, the only thing that really mattered was, like, meeting the Stygian spiders. And even then, when she went off to meet them, until we knew it was going to be because, you know, it was going to lead to the Mavis Valg reveal, it was like, why are we doing this? Like, just to fight back some more forces of darkness, and, you know, reintroduce the last named character from Assassin's Blade, Falcon, or whatever it is, Lyssandra's uncle.
The
shapeshifter. But, yeah, the beginning of this book specifically, I was like, I feel like, so Sarah J. Maas, for me, great character work, and always does a lot to describe what the characters look like, so you know what they look, which is, you know, authors do different things in different ways, and a lot of the books I read, there's not as much description about, you know, what characters look like. That's not the case here, and she expanded that, I think, in this book to really, really dig in to describe, like, places in a way that I, like, associate with Robert Jordan, in a way that I associated with the later of Robert Jordan's books, in which I would suddenly look at a paragraph and see, this is just going to describe something that's never going to be relevant again, so I'm going to start skimming. And, like, that's not something I associate with Sarah J. Maas, and it made me think that so much of this book is just filler. You could cut out so much of it so easily, just taking out some of the descriptions that were, in my opinion, kind of unnecessary.
I didn't notice that.
A lot of the book just felt like filler. Like, the amount of plot that happened was very small compared to the amount of stuff that I found to be, like, at best optional. And at worst, just kind of, like, repetitive. It really just felt like she was like, okay, I know what happens with Kale and Nesrin and Irene, and I need to find a way to pad it out to make it a full novel. I really think at best this should have been, like, a 200-page novella.
Sure, yeah.
And I really think that you, with some editing work, could have absolutely made this and Empire of Storms one book and not had to split them at all. But that's just, you know... yeah, and it makes me feel kind of bad, because it made me feel specifically towards Nesrin, whose storyline, as I said, I like the least. It made me just kind of feel, dread is the word that's coming to my mind, but that's not it. It just annoyed whenever I saw a Nesrin chapter. The second part of this book, and I still remember this, so I should tell you about my mental state when I was starting it, goes into 3 back-to-back Nesrin chapters, and I almost had to put the book down because I was so bored. Which sucks, because it's, you know... I wanted to like that character, and I thought that character was interesting, and I was really excited to see where she was going to go, and I thought initially in the beginning of the book it was actually kind of brilliant to have her along, because she is native to the continent, or however you say whatever it's called, the southern continent. And so the amount of world building that could be done, because she was a POV character, so anytime we got a chapter with her, especially in the beginning, that her, you know, internal monologue would do so much heavy lifting to do a ton of world building, because she knew a bunch of stuff about this, obviously, because she's technically from there. And so I thought that was great, but then once that kind of stopped, once we stopped getting all that world building, which there was a ton of world building in the beginning of this book, which normally I love, but again was kind of tough, and I'm sure was really tough for people who aren't me and maybe don't love world building as much.
Sure.
Because, you know, you come from this insane cliffhanger, and then you go into something that I'm sure a lot of people found to be kind of boring.
Anticlimactic.
Yeah, really anticlimactic, and kind of a bunch of information that, like, I enjoyed because I like world building, but let's be honest, it's probably never going to be relevant again. Like, none of it is probably really going to ever come up. Unless they end up on the southern continent again in the last book, which I doubt, but I could be wrong. So, you know, I'm sure that was a struggle for me. It was even kind of a struggle for me. Like, because coming in from such a fast-paced and high-stakes ending, I was just like, it was hard to adjust my mind to be like, oh, I'm ready to intake all this information and you know, put it in order. But I did think it was brilliant to have Nesrin there. But once that ended, I just felt so bad for her, because her storyline kind of just plummeted. Yeah. And it just like kind of screeched to a halt. You know, she got to see her family a little bit, and that was really nice. And thank God her actual, like, you know, father and sister and children are alive. But, you know, it kind of screeched to a halt until she left with the prince. Yeah. And I just felt it sucked, because then I knew that anytime, you know, her POV came up, I would just be like, ugh. And we never really even got her and Kale actually communicating, because they're terrible at communicating, which is part of why they broke up. But they never really communicated about anything, which I would have found really interesting. And another little rant I have, I believe I have maybe spoken before, ranted a little bit, about the silent conversations that Aelin and Rowan have, and how they have, like, full conversations. I just don't know
and what not you're just about.
I don't know how that's possible. They have, like, full conversations in a way that's not just like, you know, someone says something stupid and they, like, pan over, they look at you and you're like, oh yeah, you know, whatever, this person's an idiot, right? Which is what normal humans can have. They have full on, like, back to back, like, back and forth conversations, and it's to the point where, like, other characters will be like, oh, they're doing that thing again.
Do they say anything about them having, like, a mind link?
Not that I remember.
Okay.
No, they're not having telepathic conversations. Okay. They can just, like, I don't know.
I guess it's just never something I flagged.
It's just their Canaram or whatever that is, and because they're mated and whatever. And anyway, I was just like, look, this is something that super annoys me. Like, from a logistics standpoint, you can't communicate with someone that way. It's not possible. But whatever.
I don't know.
But it's Aelin and Rowan. But until this point, it was Aelin and Rowan's thing, and I just accepted it, and I moved on.
Did you accept it?
I did. I absolutely did. Because I haven't spoken about it in quite a few books. Nesrin and Kale broke up through that. Kale apologized to her with a look and never actually said anything.
So what's going
on?
And
it made
when does he have time?
Like, they literally are standing there, both of them with their new bows. And then Kaylin just goes, sorry. And like, and she goes,
sometimes
I know. And that's it. And then they, like, have a bit of a, like, non-speaking conversation, and then they don't talk about it. And then Irene just goes up and hugs her, and I was like, this sucks, because the entire reason that I was kind of interested in this plot line specifically was because all the other romance plot lines, they've all kind of just, like, ended up together, and it's been happy, and there's been no real complications and stuff. And this one had complications and conflict, and she just glossed over it. Which I'm like, then why did you even bother? Like, they should have broken up before they even got to the freaking continent. It really was just like a huge wasted opportunity, and it feels like it was just like a red herring. Like, you were drawing us in with this thing that was interesting that you never planned to actually have pay off. And it also is kind of crap. Like, no one would actually react that way.
I don't remember this at all. So.
I just feel really bad for the character of Nesrin, because I feel like Sarah J. Maas just completely dropped the ball with her. The only part that was interesting was the spiders, and you know, Maeve and being a Valg, and everything else. I feel like she just completely dropped it with that character.
But maybe that was the point.
How was that the point?
That she's just, like, having a meh time.
No, she's not. Okay, I'm not upset that she's having a meh time. I'm upset about like there were opportunities for her to write more interesting things for this character, and she just didn't.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. But anyway, at least her
She has a
family's
spider.
alive, which is great, and she's gonna marry a prince probably. So
Yeah,
that's pretty
that's gonna
dope.
be dope.
Who is now the heir
Yeah,
to
we
the
love
Cognate, and hopefully he's not gonna kill all his siblings, which was.
Yeah, brutal,
a lot.
right?
Yeah. So hopefully that's not going to happen. Though that would be a pretty interesting epilogue.
Absolutely.
Nesrin goes back and helps him murder all of his siblings. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I guess the only other person we haven't really dug into is Kale. Too much. Kinda. I mean, the one thing about I thought that Kale's storyline was fine. Kale was in the middle. Kale was my, Sometimes he really annoyed me, like when he lashed out at Irene. Though I guess that's in character for him, so I can't really like be too pissed off about it.
Yeah.
The one thing that kind of bugged me out was the like final climactic thing of Irene, healing him fully, getting rid of the darkness or squashing it down enough that he can walk and move. It kind of fell a little flat for me. I don't know why. I really liked the stuff at the end with Dorian, where he faced the fact that Dorian was the one who like tortured his men, and there's all this other stuff. But the whole beginning part of it, because it's all one long chapter, the whole beginning part of it was him and how much he and his internalized and maybe subconscious hate for Aelin.
Yeah.
And part of it had to do with, Nehemia and stuff, which I was just like, oh my god, this was not Kale's, whatever. Not Kale's fault. I can't get into that conversation again because it'll annoy me too. But it felt kind of strange for me because I was like, I feel like Kale had moved on. Like, the way that Kale was being written, I thought that he had, internalized subconsciously or not, actually kind of moved on from the Aelin part.
Yeah.
And I would have honestly enjoyed it more if they dealt with his... If it was more of Dorian and his internalized self-hatred for the way he was he had kind of, used Nesrin. Yeah, I don't know. I think that just kind of threw me off because I kind of wasn't really expecting it. I was just like... Him and Aelin, that thing is way in the past now. Though I guess timeline-wise, it's really only been a year or something. It's really not been that long. But the way that he's being written and the things that were being happened, I was kind of surprised.
You know what I mean?
For sure. It was kind of a surprise to me that I was just like, oh, okay, we're still on the Aelin thing. Yeah. Sure, because he just. I
also wonder if that was partially to show his emotional complexity, that he is a lover.
Sure. Yeah. He's an interesting fellow. What a traditionalist. It feels big traditionalist.
That's probably why he annoyed me so much.
Yeah, sure. Oops. I don't know.
Kale's not my favorite. I loved him, I think, as we all did when him and Aelin were together, and then after that I was like, you're annoying.
Yeah, he does.
I'd be curious to see how I feel during a reread because I've only read these ones, so.
Yeah, there were some moments in this that I was like, come on, man, we gotta grow.
Together, man.
We can't be doing this.
Yeah. I don't know.
No, it's just, I was reading through some of my notes, and there's no, euphemisms in this that I really enjoyed, but the term plundering kiss was used, which made me laugh.
You kind of know exactly what it is,
plundering kiss.
You know exactly what they mean.
It means that Kale leads with tongue.
Yeah, he does.
Anyway. I've said a lot of things that I didn't like about this book, but I will, and I know that the world building probably wasn't everyone's favorite, and it was kind of fluff, a lot of it, I think, but I kind of liked it. There were certain things, I liked all the royals.
You're a world building guy.
I am a world building guy. And I also love a good pantheon, and the fact that, the society that they had built was... just absorbed or combined the gods that they conquered, I thought was really interesting. I did also think it was really interesting that they spent a lot of time thinking about how beautiful and idyllic the Cognate is and the empire in the southern continent is, and didn't take a lot of time then thinking could Dorian ever turn Adelon, or however you say it, into a land like this, such a beautiful, wonderful land, and not really thinking or talking about the fact that it's an empire, which means a lot of people died to make they seem to think that it's such a perfect paradise, and I'm like, it wasn't when they had to build it.
Yeah.
But that's really neither here nor there. I just thought it was interesting because it kept being brought up, and I was just like, I mean, you know how you make an empire, right? But empire is not usually a good word. I liked the world building. I liked the entire new society she had to build for this. And I honestly think that some credit should go out to her for building an entire society as detailed as this when it's probably not really going to be relevant again for like the second to last book you're going to write in a series.
Yeah.
You know, and we got different, like, I loved the fact that each sibling was in control of one wing of the military. It was so interesting. I really, really loved the princess, whose name is escaping me right now, who, with a lesbian, I do not remember her name, but she was great. Irene's friend, I really liked her, and like the romance Irene had with one of the princes. And it's just like there was some political, there was a lot of like political scheming going on, which I always really enjoy in my books. And yeah, I mean, I think that the world building was great. I just wish it had come in a book where I didn't feel like it was being used as an excuse to make it book length for like sales purposes. But yeah, otherwise, I mean, you know, I enjoyed the book. Like I said, I read it really fast. Maybe not because 100% because I was just like enjoying every second of it, but I did. I mean, it moved. I thought it moved pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I read it in like 2 or 3 days. So, yeah, I don't know. Anything else?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, well,
we covered it.
I think we did. So, what do you want to rate this out of? I have an idea, but do you
okay, go. No.
I was gonna say the Rucks.
Yeah.
Or Griffins, really? Yeah. I thought that would be. I
said
cool.
it Ruck in my head. So
is it Ruck?
Ruck or Rook? But I would assume it's Ruck. Ruck feels right.
Yeah.
Tell us. Let us know.
Let us
I'm sure
know.
Sarah J. Maas has a video
so,
somewhere.
how many out of 5 Rucks would you give this?
So this is a hard one because I haven't read it in so long and I wasn't rating things when I first read this. But like right now when I'm thinking about it, I would probably give it 3.5 Rucks.
That's actually what I was going to give it
my
too.
gosh.
Yeah, I'm kind of torn. I would
There's
give
a
it,
part of me that would say 4 because I remember being so thrilled by the ending, by the maze,
ending's
by the
exciting,
spiders.
yeah.
The spiders were so exciting. The last battle was so exciting. And that's, Sarah J. Maas books always get me at the very end where I'm like, oh no, I love this.
Yeah.
Like I'm so excited. That's when I read the first Avatar book. I didn't love it until the very end. So, but looking back overall now, I think I'd probably give it 3.5.
Yeah, it's by no means my least favorite of the books. You know, some of those earlier ones where Sarah J. Maas was still really finding her style. You know, the prose in this is good, and you know, it's not. I really didn't like Airfire. Airfire is probably my least favorite of the book still. But you know, the ending is great. There's some cool reveals. There's some big battle sequences. But like I said, there were some logical fallacies that just really kind of tore me out of it. And I was just like, what? But yeah, I would give this a 3.25 if we did that. But I'm
I was
gonna
say 3.75.
Yeah.
So
this is a weak 3.5 or a strong 3. So we're going 3.5. Sure.
Yeah, go 3.
Round up. But yeah, so that's really all I got for this one. I can't believe that the next one's the last one.
I'm so
excited.
excited.
Finished the series. That's crazy.
This is one of my favorite books.
Yeah, so I'm really excited. I have high hopes because I liked the Empire Storm so much, and now Kale's going to be back, and I'm excited for his reunion
with
Dorian.
This is also a chunky book.
And Irene is going to meet Aelin again, and that'll be emotional and fun. Yeah, so I'm excited. There's a lot to happen in the last book, and I'm very excited to pick it up. But yeah, so those are our thoughts. Let us know if you agree or disagree in the comments down below. What do you think about this book? Do you think it could have just been one book or a novella? Or do you think that it justifies every page that it has? Let us know.
Absolutely loved it. Should we reread it and do the tandem read? Everyone's going to say yes. Yeah. Everyone's going to say yes because everyone loves the tandem read.
Great. Well, anyway, that's all from us. So thank you all so much for watching, and
we'll see you on our next adventure.